Well, good morning. Welcome back to the broadcast, Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Monday, November 29th, 2021. And our top story today, monitoring tweets to score sentiment about publicly traded companies. Well, joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Peter Rothman is with S&P Dow Jones Indices, and Jared Podnos is with Twitter. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Peter, I want to start with you, and a lot of us have heard about the S&P 500. Before we get into the index and measuring sentimentality, let's talk about what the S&P 500 is. I need a refresher. The audience may as well.
So the S&P 500 is the premier equity benchmark in the U.S., reflecting large cap stocks, and its benchmark, trillions of dollars are benchmarked to it and track it as an investment vehicle. As the name implies, it has 500 stocks. It's quite venerable. It's been around in its present form for well over 50 years. And so oftentimes when our firm is looking at new innovative products, we use the S&P 500 as a starting point.
Yeah, and I think everyone, if you mention the stock market just to a person on the street, they would know the S&P 500. And by the way, they would know the name Twitter as well. Jared, let's come to you and let's talk about Twitter sentiment. What exactly does that mean and how do you measure it?
Sure. So let's just talk about the finance conversation first, because I think that's a good starting spot. So you have this incredibly robust conversation on the platform. So you're seeing 26% growth in conversation in 2020. In 2021, it's one of the top 3 growing conversation trends on Twitter. And it's really because of the audience that we have. So you have world leaders that come and announce public policy. You have CEOs that share information about their companies. You have journalists that break information 24/7. And then you have market experts and individual investors that really respond and understand those conversations and have a community that they engage with. And so that's really where S&P comes in. They leverage Twitter's developer platform. They consume that conversation, and they have some really sophisticated text analytics and additional tools with big data that helps understand the mood of the crowd, helps understand the sentiment, and helps understand the companies that are tweeted about in a most positive way. And then they build an index that reflects that conversation.
Yeah, and this to me is the melding of data, sentiment, social media. I think this is very interesting. Peter, I want to come to you, but because I want to understand, how do you S&P not only creates the S&P 500 index, but you're also a ratings organization, or at least the broader S&P Global is a ratings organization. You manage a lot of data. How do you integrate and take from the Twitter sentiment and bring it over into the S&P platform?
Well, so first of all, we are firewalled off from the ratings organization. So their data is their data, our data is our data. And so those are completely independent activities. What we do is basically ingest Twitter data through feeds that they have. And then we first sift the tweets that are associated with particular company stocks. And that there's an indicator on tweets, whether a tweet is meant to be about a company stock or not. That's referred to as a hashtag that we can talk a little bit more about. And basically, we look for the tweets that are the most relevant. So we try to filter out the quote unquote spam, and we get kind of a reduced set of tweets that we consider to be the most representative tweets, if you will. And we then score them using some of the tools that Jared was alluding to. And we score all of the stocks in the 500 on a daily basis for a month period. We then take a look at the average of those scores over that month. We weight the more recent scores slightly higher. And then we do a ranking of those stocks. And the highest ranked stocks, depending on, we have 2 indices, one that picks 50 and one that picks 200 names, depending on the number you're picking, you essentially sort that list and pick the highest ranking stocks. And then for the next month, that's the index. And then at the end of that month, the sentiment that we gathered for that month is then reconsidered, and so on and so on and so on. So you're basically looking at sentiment for a month, have an index on those stocks for a month, and it keeps going continuously like that.
Thanks, Peter. Jared, I want to come back to you. You mentioned the term API, data integration. you're going to have to explain to me, look, I'm tech savvy. I can use my phone. I'm using the computer now. What exactly is an API, and how do companies like S&P integrate with the Twitter platform?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think not all of us understand what an API is, how businesses communicate with each other. I think it might be helpful if I give a little backstory and a little bit of the history of Twitter and our developer community. So Twitter was started in 2006. It was a really simple text-based social community and messaging platform. And what started really simple as this text-based platform was enhanced by this vibrant and really creative developer community. So they looked at what was available through the core Twitter offering. And they said, well, I'd love to have things like pictures. I'd like to have like a more rich media experience. They created things like the reply and the retweet. Even the original iPhone app that you use was created by a developer who programmatically connected with Twitter to create this solution. So that was like our history with developers. There's been this really exciting way in which users looked at the features available from Twitter and then enhanced that platform and said, I'd love to build new features or new solutions for new communities that aren't being served. At the same time, we have this developer platform that provides access to Twitter data at scale. So when you think about the hundreds of millions of conversations that happen on Twitter every day, it's impossible for any business to sift through those and understand what's going on all across the world 24/7. So we provide access to these conversations to businesses like S&P 500 that then really take the sophisticated data analytics and machine learning and AI to understand and analyze that conversation and then build solutions on top of that. And that's really what this sentiment index is. It's thinking about the voice of all these people across the globe on Twitter 24/7, and then helping people understand what that conversation means and how does it impact stock performance in the future.
And besides, all that data integration is helpful for alleviating my thumb getting out of whack from trying to scroll and keep up with the news. Gentlemen, I need to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about exactly what a cash tag is and also how investors can gain access to this new index. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. We're talking this morning to Peter Rothman of S&P Dow Jones Indices and Jared Podnos of Twitter. Gentlemen, thanks so much for staying with us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jared, I want to come to you because there's something that, look, I've heard of hashtags, but I'm not aware exactly what a cash tag is. What is a cash tag?
It's a great question. So for those that aren't familiar even with the hashtag, let me do a little primer there. Early on in Twitter, we have a lot of features that are created by the community of users. And so we started to see that different communities would put a hashtag or a pound symbol in front of different topics. And that way, users that were interested in having discussions about those similar topics were able to find that and curate them more easily and then participate. That concept, which is very broad-based, was really narrowed down when we start to think about the cash tag, where users would start to put dollar signs in front of financial conversation. And that allowed users to say, okay, this is a tweet about this specific company or this specific financial topic. And so we have the same concept of a hashtag where communities of users are engaging in conversation about similar topics and themes, but now it's more curated down to the specific company or security. And the nice part about Twitter is that while it started with stocks, we've now seen this broaden to include bonds and FX rates, commodities, and even new asset classes like cryptocurrencies and NFTs. And so this has been an evolution, and it's wonderful to see the conversation grow and strengthen and develop. And I'm sure that this isn't the last innovation that our developer community is going to have when it comes to financial conversation on Twitter.
Yeah, probably. I mean, Twitter is very innovative. S&P very innovative. I agree with you. I highly doubt this is the last innovation. Peter, how does this sentiment, these cash tags, get processed so that you can track investor sentiment and you have information to give to the investor?
So essentially, we're taking in the cash tags in order to get the tweets that are specifically about particular stocks. We then have an artificial intelligence algorithm that scores each tweet based on the probability of it being positive or negative. And then those things are scored over the month and for each stock. And then all those scores are aggregated, averaged, and then ranked. And then we take the top scoring companies and use those for the index.
Yeah, it sounds so simple, but yet it probably is not. Peter, let me ask you. There's been a lot of talk in the news about gamification. If I mention Reddit, GameStop, AMC, just examples, how does that get incorporated into your thinking about reading the cash tags and processing this and then creating an index around it, or does it not?
It's a great question. And I think the one thing that's the hallmark of an index that's different from those particular scenarios is diversification. These two indices have 50 and 200 members respectively. So if a particular name had a quote unquote run of sentiment, it might or might not be in the index for that month. And if it was a strong enough sentiment positively, it belongs in there. Don't forget that there was also negative sentiment expressed about some of these names at particular times. So in the end, it averages out, but that's what it would mean. So we're not trying to pick the one singular winner and time that. That's not what an index really does, and that's not what this index does, because it has a monthly cycle. It's meant to look at the behavior of the corpus of stocks over time statistically. So the Reddit kind of things that you're describing will enter into it, but they will not have an inordinate influence just because of the sheer diversification of the index.
And Jared, maybe I should have started with you. And look, I do things backwards sometimes, but from the Twitter platform perspective, a lot in the news about Reddit, GameStop, AMC, all these, the gamification as Peter and I were just chatting about. From your perspective, from Twitter's perspective, is this something that you monitor, or is it something that you just say, okay, this is what people are talking about, they're talking about it?
For Twitter, we want to provide a platform where investors and users all across the world have a place that they can go and have a conversation. And so we're seeing an incredible increase in the volume and trends in financial conversation. I think that the attention that those recent examples brought to Twitter and to other platforms just highlight how powerful the voice and the conversation on these platforms can be. I think it helps investors understand that this is something that's powerful and it's something that they should be aware of. And I think S&P does a great job of helping individuals really measure and monitor that conversation over time. So I think it's just a great proof point of how powerful these networks are and how important it is to be listening in.
Yeah. Peter, last question for you. If I'm a retail investor, an institutional investor, say I run an endowment, a foundation, a pension, how do I gain access to this index?
So at this point in time, we're in conversations with firms that we license to build financial products off of our indices. As you probably know, S&P Dow Jones Indices doesn't create financial products itself, but rather licenses its intellectual property to firms to do that. So we're in those discussions, and we hope that there'll be products in relative short order, but I can't give you an exact time estimate at this point.
Yeah, I mean, speaking for myself, I could see this both in the retail side, I could see it in retirement plans and pension plans. I think a lot of people would want to have access to an index like this. Well, gentlemen, we're going to have to leave it there. Pleasure chatting with you. Thanks so much for joining us. And we look forward to having you both back on the program again very soon.
Thanks for having us.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement markets, technology, wellness, you name it, we got it. Check out our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to see all of our great content? Search our archives. Check out the latest on Roku, Amazon, Samsung, and over 100 different streaming platforms. We're back again tomorrow. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes. Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the first lifestyle and wellness network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.